So now to kind of drill into this idea of ADUs, accessory dwelling units. This is from a typical zoning ordinance, the city code book on what you can build. You'll get more into this as you go through your architecture program. But in this case, the illustration says you can build, the blues are what would be the ADUs. They can be part of the house, they can be an addition to the house, or in the case of our project, they're going to be a detached building next to the primary residence or on the same lot. And many codes are adopting these kind of allowances of having a dwelling unit, a second dwelling unit on a lot. Typically not in our code. This is the City of Buffalo code. And a lot of times they're doing now these graphical representations like we saw here, just giving you an indication of what they're talking about. So it's not just words. They back them up with some kind of graphic. And in this case, the ADUs in the City of Buffalo, in their new green code, which is a newly adopted building code, a zoning ordinance code, should I say, allows for this idea of a second business or dwelling unit on the site. And it talks about, the requirements for that. And this gets into detail and really more than we need to really think about for this final module. It's really more to have fun with this kind of a small size building, and I'm really less concerned about how can I say it, the zoning and building details of it. We're really at the point of I'm just filling in some of the blanks of the storyline, but it's really about what you can do with your BIM modeler in order to create some kind of concepts and see what kind of issues come up when you work in your tool. So accessory dwelling units are pretty well understood. They have some neat ideas about them. And I hope this kind of helps to set the idea, give you a storyline behind what you're going to create as far as a small building. But typically homeowners can apply for these permits to add on these small buildings, and they can actually do their own work to construct them. So go back to what I talked about before, building your own house. The idea of building your own accessory dwelling unit is really something that in some municipalities is not only allowed, but kind of encouraged to increase density within cities. So from now on to probably the end of the slideshow, I'm just going to give you some examples to stimulate your thinking on this. So this is from Tree Hugger just recently, the idea of a work-at-home studio as a module, combining modules. You'd order them, have them delivered, brought to the site, basically float on this on a prepared site with no specific foundation, but some technical issues to help kind of ground it down. In this case, they put screws into the ground in order to hold the building down from hurricanes and tornadoes and high winds. This is just another example from Tree Hugger. Prefab cabin, once again, more an actual product. This is a shot of the interior of it. And, just very contemporary design, no overhangs of roofs, large amounts of glazing systems, not cheap construction by any means. And it's a hot topic, this idea of ADUs to combat housing shortages, especially in places like LA. So this is illustrated. This is a lot of student project type work. Once again, it's hyperlinked, so you can click on through to it. Let me grab my laser pointer on here. Now I wanted to just I went through and Googled ADUs and came up with and selected a few projects that I thought kind of helped illustrate some ideas for you to consider going forward with your project. In this case, one of them is this kind of upscale architectural merit to these buildings. So in this case, we have a really large major glazing area. Typically, this is typically with the kind of things you buy at Home Depot, these might be 7 foot tall. In this case, this might be 8 or 9 feet tall, creating a really grand opening, brightly lit area for this ADU. This overhang of the roof, just a simple extension of 3 feet, really creating a nice kind of covered entry to what's probably the formal entry to the house back here. Horizontal siding, it's not overlapping, so it has its own kind of modern, unique look to it. The metal roofing. Also notice the way the building is sited, the planters, the stairways, all of this just creating an extension of the interior to the outside. for areas to entertain. The use of the building material, the same building material to construct a landscaping planter to kind of help coordinate the site and extend that feeling of the size or volume of what the space is out to the exterior area. Here's one that's made probably with simpler components, less expensive building materials. Now we have a standard siding on the building, much more standard windows, but still enhanced with the idea of a transom window above the main windows. But the real feature of this one is the overhanging roof of this, what is probably a shed-style roof, and this nice taper that occurs to the rafters. Notice how the uplights are catching light to highlight this nice wood tone here, and then it's accentuated with the fencing system around it, and this feeling of an immersion in the greenscape or landscape. Once again, attention to this connection to the outdoors, small spaces, but with the idea that you can extend your living to the outdoors. Another kind of architectural building style, Mediterranean, or maybe this is in the Southwest. This is probably a stucco or a synthetic stucco, or it could be a masonry. It's really hard to tell exactly what it is. Notice the nice deep window pockets, probably built to match the house. And the feature here, probably the largest feature item here, is this really massive structure that creates the outdoor covering and protection from the sun. Once again, a simple structure, but still has a nice impact. We have vertical siding, board and batten. So we have a large board, and then over the joint, another batten board is nailed on. It gives kind of a rich look to the finish. In this case, it looks like the nice embellishment to the building, an otherwise simple building with simple windows, casement windows, and double hung windows, all very affordable, are these overhangs here to protect the entry condition and a little protection over the patio area here. But nice little brace construction here. Here's another really modern, lots of glazing system. Notice how, once again, just a nice effect of extending this idea of the size of the building out by creating this platform around it. So we have both an inside area and an outside area that you can inhabit. Charming use of recycled siding materials to create a warmth, rusticated features to the building. The corner condition of the windows, quite effective for the small space. Notice the approach to the building, the landscaping, the use of the rough stone walkway to indicate the entry point. Another more modern, modest ADU unit. In this case, lots of change in the grade facilitated this, concrete barrier walls here. This looks like a computer rendering, but I thought it was in the ADU list of images that came up, and I thought it was quite effective. Once again, this idea of what happens outside the building is extended over roofs, creating exterior kind of inhabitable spaces. In this case, privacy fencing, probably proposed for a relatively upscale neighborhood at very high density. This looks like a poured concrete wall where the formwork has been made out of wood, so there's an impression left in the concrete. Quite upscale. This appears to be a modular unit. Nice use of vertical siding material. Notice how the siding is interrupted both by the window and then by this trim piece here, and then that's repeated down here for a very nice effect. A minimum amount of pitch roof. And once again, this idea of what's happening with the landscaping, the pathways leading towards the entry to give the viewer, kind of an idea of how the space functions or how the entry functions. A complicated grade here again. Looks like now we have a two-story building. I thought the vertical siding was quite effective. virtually no overhangs here, except the only interruption of these being flat surfaces is the gutter to collect water. And so anyway, that's just some stimulating ideas, I hope. I hope you can Google them yourself and maybe come up with other things that could influence the design you want to do. A little pre-research work before you start laying pen to paper, so you can move along quickly and efficiently and kind of fit it within the lab period time that you have. And I think this idea of working at home, the idea of the storyline of this, which I really haven't dealt with very much, driven by the pandemic, driven by the fact that um, you may need to work at home, the value of staying at home, being at home, having other people nearby, like older parents, are all pressing concerns that architects will be dealing with even more acutely in the future. And not the only person thinking about this. This will be on our subject. This will be on your subjects of design and studio work going forward. The pandemic has changed the way we think about cities, the way we think about work. And so I think this idea of working on this accessory dwelling unit should have some useful meaning going forward to when you start doing more elaborate studio work in the years ahead.